Okay, so if you have ever wondered how to get your podcast in front of more people without spending money on ads or starting over from scratch, then this one is for you. Because in just 30 days, we doubled our yearly podcast episode downloads. Yes, doubles. But here's the kicker. It wasn't from going viral or chasing trends. It was from building real repeatable systems that made growth sustainable. So in today's episode, I'm breaking down exactly what we changed, how one SEO tweak made Apple and Spotify boost our reach, how we started repurposing episodes so ChatGPT now recommends our blog, and how simplifying our process actually created more connection and more downloads. This is the kind of deep dive strategy we teach inside the Collective Co-op, where every Monday we take one big system like this and show you how it works in real life. So make sure to subscribe and listen below, but also take a peek at our Collective Co-op program so you can get more great tips just like this one. Grab your notebook, hit subscribe, and let's talk about how to scale your podcast and your business smarter, not harder. Hello there. Welcome back to the Crush to Rush podcast. I'm so excited because today I'm pulling back the curtain on something that's been 5 years in the making, but it just happened recently. So it's very, very real time. And I think you guys are going to love it. So I'm going to talk about how we doubled our yearly podcast downloads in just 30 days. And before you think that I'm going to give you some like clickbait growth hack or free thing, let me tell you, I'm going to tell you the exact steps. There's nothing tied to it because I don't actually teach, I don't have a product that teaches you how to podcast, which maybe I should. Maybe that's something we should do for 2026. But my goal with this podcast was not about going viral. It never has been. It's been about building systems and routines that make growth sustainable. And so before we dig in, this is the kind of behind the scenes strategy that we teach inside the Collective Co-op. And if you've been following along for a while and you're listening to this in real time, the Collective Co-op is open now for 2026. So if you're curious about these kinds of real world systems where we take one big strategy and show you how it works in real life and apply it to you, you can join us at our Collective Co-op open house. It's at hollymariehaynes.com/open house. Now, this podcast people listen to all the time. So if you're listening to this and it's not in real time, just go to hollymariehaynes.com/co-op, COOP, and it will take you to all the right information. But I want to call that out because I think right now in business, and I've shared this quite a bit, that we don't need more information. We need tangible steps that we can implement right now and somebody to hold us accountable to do it. And so today, I'm going to give you the steps that I took to grow our podcast in the last 30 days and how we've been able to double our yearly downloads. As in 30 days, we increased our downloads by 2 from the entire last year, which is a lot. And I will say the first thing that I want to start with is it started with this goal of I need to focus on one thing. And this was actually in the summer. I've had this podcast for 5 years. We have published over 600 episodes. We've crossed almost 500,000 downloads, which is amazing. But here's the thing. The show isn't a go viral and get sponsors kind of podcast. And maybe we will have sponsors one day. I have thought about it. But for now, it's what I call a nurturing podcast. We create this podcast to build relationships with you, to help you become clients, to help you get to know who I am in our community and who our clients are. And so we use this podcast as a networking machine, but also a content machine. Currently, I'm not posting any new content on social media. It's all coming from the podcast, which means I don't even have to open the app ever if I don't want to, which is really great. But if you've gone through anti-social school, you know what I mean. One long form piece of content, whether it's a podcast or not, can power everything else so much. So when I decided this summer that I was going to double down on one thing, I was like, it has to be the podcast. When I think about content and I think about how we grow and how we scale, everything comes back to the podcast. How I meet people, the podcast. How I teach and learn, the podcast. How I talk about our products and services, the podcast. How we create content, the podcast. And what's really fun is the results shocked me, but honestly, they kind of didn't, because my advice to my clients is always focus on one thing and go all in. And so that's what we did. And so I'm going to share with you exactly what we did. So thank you for listening to the pre-story. Now let's get to the good stuff, right? So step one is we did a little mini rebrand, but we didn't do it for the show. So let me explain what this is. So we rebranded our cover, our title, our intro, and our outro. But we didn't do it for marketing reasons. We did it for SEO. SEO is having a moment right now. And so our title is Crush the Rush. And I've shared this before. I don't love the title, but it's a brand at this point, and people who have listened to us for a while know it. And so I was like, I'm not going to change the title, at least yet, but I need something that if you don't know what it means, or you're not familiar with the Crush the Rush brand, that like, what are you going to type in Apple Podcast or Google or even ChatGPT? You're not going to type Crush the Rush, right? So we added clarity. So now it's the Crush the Rush, the Life First CEO podcast. And so we wanted the word CEO in it because it leans into our brand philosophy and gives context to new listeners who are searching for those like life first business strategies. We've got a huge description on the back end that's very SEO charged. And by huge, I don't mean long. I mean, it's very intentional. But here's what we changed. We changed the cover art. So it now says the Life First CEO podcast. The intro is now less than a minute long because most people don't even listen to it. I honestly just want to skip the intro, but I know it's important. The outro is very action focused. It either invites you to listen, to join, or to come chat with us. And these tiny changes signal to Apple, Spotify, and even Google that we refreshed our show, which is how you can get bumped up in search results. And it worked. So the second step that we did was change just a little bit how we interview and share stories. And so this wasn't just me like announcing like, oh, we're going to do it different now. I just subtly shifted it as I started conducting more interviews. So for the past 2 months, you might have noticed something different in our interviews. We have skipped the long intros, which I mentioned. We're digging really straight into the conversation. Like a lot of times I get off interviews and people will be like, that was so efficient. That was so quick. And I'm like, that's the point. I want to get straight to the point. I want you to walk away with something tangible in like the first minute, right? And then we focus on what you can't Google. So I want you to Google the show, but then I want you to listen and I want you to walk away with something that you can't Google, which is why I want you to be part of our community. So we're talking about like behind the scenes data, honest conversations about revenue, motherhood, what it actually looks like to build your business in your 40s while having a family and all the things. But authenticity is what I'm leaning into. So I think we've shared this as a theme over the last couple episodes, but people are tired of surface level stories. They want real and messy and imperfect. And they want to know like, well, what did you do versus what did your team do? And so I really started treating every episode like a conversation at a business table or a mastermind table. And it's not a scripted interview. Sometimes I do have questions that I plan ahead, but I will go completely off script. And so the feedback has been really incredible. And that's when our engagement went up, our shares went up, and our downloads increased. So the third thing that we did was layer in SEO and really leaned into our repurposing systems. So this is really where things can get strategic. So we started layering in SEO and repurposing systems around our podcast. Now, I will tell you, if you're in Anti-Social School or you're in our Crush the Rush Club, we talk about repurposing all the time. That system has existed for a really long time, but I wanted to lean into it even more. Like I wanted to make good, great. So instead of one set of blogs per episode, we now have 2 blogs per solo episode. So I count this episode as a solo episode. We have a shorter blog that has show notes and timestamps, which are great for SEO's keywords. And now we have a 5,000 plus word long form blog post that goes into each episode topic. And it's more like a resource guide or a strategy breakdown. And here's why. Because Google, now ChatGPT, indexes blogs not podcast audio. So when someone types how to grow a podcast organically into ChatGPT, I want our content to pop up. And a lot of our clients recently have said, I found you through ChatGPT. It recommended your blog or it recommended your podcast. And so my takeaway is that's not luck. It's SEO compounding over time. And we have a lot of episodes and a lot of blogs. But the fun part is I wanted to take the repurposing even further. And so I've talked about this and we're going to talk about it in a couple of weeks. I created custom GPTs that does all the content repurposing for our podcast episode. So I have to show up and record the episode, but then I have GPTs that write the email, write the blog post. If I want to share on social, it will write the social media captions, and it takes like 30 seconds. So I really slowed down to speed up in this scenario, but layered in some really intentional things to help get us more visible. So the last thing we did was actually really fun, and it's something that I learned inside a mastermind that I am. And we created a podcast newsletter. So we've really been leaning into our whole email experience, which is something I've talked about a little bit. And it's kind of like choose your own adventure right now. If you want to get a weekly update, you can. If you want to get all the updates, you can. If you want to get a podcast update, you can. You really get to choose what you want to see. And so we went into our email service provider, which is Kit, and we created an email address called the Crush the Rush Podcast. So now you get emails from me during the week, but every Monday you actually get an email from this podcast, not me personally. Now, of course, it's me writing it and it says it's from me, but it's really fun to see the podcast in your email, which is another signal of oh, I need to go listen this week. And so the email structure is built like a mini magazine, and we used Kit to build this, previously ConvertKit. And what it includes is a key takeaway from the week's episode. So you don't even have to listen to the episode to have this key takeaway. Again, it has the choose your own adventure where you can opt into what you want to hear from us. And then we have curated playlists. So we've been creating curated playlists over on Spotify, which have been great game changers in terms of highlighting some of our previous episodes. So for example, you could binge client success stories. You could binge how to grow your email list. You could binge how to build a client attraction plan. And so these playlists get highlighted in our weekly email, but also they live on Spotify. And then we redid our press and our podcast page. So it makes it really easy for you as a listener to jump into whatever category that fits your stage of business. That part was really fun to do. I love doing the creative pieces, and it feels really good to me to repurpose some of the episodes that we have previously created. Step number 5 is keep it simple and keep it human. So the wild part about this little podcast streamlining adventure is it all came from simplifying. Not for more posting, not for more launching, just treating the podcast like a living, breathing system that really just deserves some attention. It just needed some attention, kind of like a kid. It deserves the same level of strategy that everything else in our business had. And so the systems that made it sustainable were SEO through our blog and show notes, email segmentation so that our listeners are engaged, playlist and repurposing so that you can binge and make listening easier, and then really just leaning into our authentic storytelling to deepen connection. We focused on one thing. I think we did it really well. It was really fun for me because I do love this show, which I think is an important factor when you're thinking about strategy. It's how can you make it fun? And then we gave it time to work. So we started this little project in July, and then in September, we doubled our downloads for the entire year. As in, it was the highest downloads in a month we've ever had this entire year. It was more than we'd had the entire year. So if you have a podcast, I hope that you're going to walk away with some very tangible things that you can do. If you don't, take one thing away from this episode, and that is you really don't need more followers, more likes, more listeners. You need a better system. And so for us, the same episodes that weren't performing before, for whatever reason, they were great episodes. They just didn't have the right context around them. Now they're reaching double the audience because we improved the experience, not the effort. So think about the experience. What are you giving as an experience that can save you time, but also help your clients? And so if you want to learn more about this strategy step by step, this is exactly what we teach every Monday inside the Collective Co-op. We pick one big topic like this, and then we go into detail and apply it to your business, hold you accountable, give you real life examples, and then help you implement it from my team and myself. If you want to experience it for yourself, you can head on over to our Collective Co-op open house happening soon. It's at hollymariehaynes.com/open house. If you happen to be listening to this at a later date, you can just visit hollymariehaynes.com/co-op, COOP, to see what's inside. Because sometimes the best way to grow is to double down on what's already working and give the strategy and the systems the attention that they deserve.